He showed up to the party with a box of chocolates. They showed up with laughter. She once called him her everything. Now she wouldn't even call his name. But what they didn't know was that the man they mocked for riding a bicycle would one day own a motorcycle company that changed lives across Africa. This is not just a story about revenge. It's a story about vision, betrayal, resilience, and what happens when you choose legacy over approval. Welcome to the untold journey of Elikim Kwe, from the boy who rode through shame to the man who built an empire on two wheels. If you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever loved someone who forgot your worth, stay. This story might just change the way you see yourself. YouTube video description, SEO optimized. What happens when your ex laughs at your dreams, but your dreams come true anyway? Watch this powerful undercover CEO story of Elikim Kwe, mocked for riding a bicycle, now founder of Africa's fastest-growing motorcycle company. A viral tale of love, betrayal, and the power of believing in yourself when no one else will. You ever seen someone ride through life like they had nothing to lose? Not reckless, not wild, just determined. Wounded maybe, but still moving. That was Elikim Kwe. Every morning at 6:40 sharp, he pushed his dusty blue bicycle out of the cramped corridor of his aunt's house in Nima, Accra. The paint on the bike had faded into something between ash and memory. The bell no longer worked. The left pedal groaned with each turn, like it was tired of the journey too. But Elikim rode it anyway, not because he liked it, not because he had no shame, but because dreams don't pause for pride. And that morning, the one that changed everything, the sun was already unforgiving, even though it wasn't yet 8. Vendors were yelling over each other about kelaweli, waki, and fresh sachet water. The streets pulsed with life and chaos. Buses hissed, horns screamed, and through it all, Elikim pedaled silently, the back of his shirt soaked with sweat. His delivery bag bounced lightly behind him, half full, half forgotten. But as he approached the roundabout near the Accra Mall, the screech of tires snapped him out of rhythm. A matte black Range Rover curved into the curb with the kind of confidence only money could buy. Music blasted from inside. Afrobeats turned all the way up like a personal anthem. The door opened. Slowly, deliberately, out stepped a woman in a crimson jumpsuit that clung like wealth itself had stitched it. Her heels touched the pavement like they didn't belong there, and her voice, soft until it saw him. "Elikim Kwe," she said, lips curling. "Still riding that museum piece?" The laughter that followed wasn't loud, but it sliced. He knew that voice. Sena. She was the kind of beautiful that made people turn twice. But Elikim, he remembered when her beauty had no makeup. No gloss, no filters, just hunger and dust. She used to sell mangoes barefoot under the Bubwashi Bridge. Now she leaned on a luxury car like she owned the city. And standing next to her, arm lazily wrapped around her waist, was Kojo Blaze. Kojo was everything Elikim was not. Tall, chiseled, draped in a linen outfit so white it hurt to look at. Gold chain. Designer. Shades at attitude imported straight from East Legon. Kojo looked at the bike, then at Elikim, then laughed the way some men laugh when they know you can't afford their kind of insult. "Bro, I swear, this your bicycle day drag like 2003 playlist," he said, shaking his head. "Elikim, update yourself, it's embarrassing." Couple of street vendors giggled. Someone muttered, "Ah, she left him for that guy." Another whispered, "No wonder." Elikim didn't say a word. He just gave a small nod, adjusted his bag, and kept pedaling. But the laughter chased him down. The road like shadows that didn't want to let go. He didn't cry. Not because it didn't hurt, but because he'd cried all those tears years ago, when the girl he had once fed forgot how hunger felt. His legs moved like they were pushing against more than just the road. Memories flooded him as he turned down a quiet alley, away from the stares, the sneers, the noise. Because that woman in the jumpsuit, she wasn't just an old flame. She was the same girl who once wore flip-flops made from old car tires. The girl who once told him, "I don't need a prince. I just need someone who sees me. And back then, Elikim had seen her, really seen her. But now, she couldn't even see him without laughing. He stopped briefly near a tree and let his hand rest on the handlebar. Not to rest, but to breathe. The kind of breath you take when your pride just took a punch and you're trying not to fall over. Across the street, a boy no older than 10 looked at Elikim's bike and smiled. "Nice one, boss," the boy said. "I want one like that someday." Elikim managed a weak grin. "Keep dreaming," he whispered, "even if they laugh. Because that's what they never tell you. That sometimes the dream begins not with applause but with mockery." And in that moment, as the dust from his tires lifted into the sunlit street, Elikim didn't just pedal forward. He pedaled through every sneer, every slap of silence, every memory that tried to hold him back. He wasn't just delivering packages anymore. He was delivering a promise. To himself, to the 10-year-old across the road, and to the future. The boy with dusty wheels was far from finished. He had just started moving. Before the Range Rover, before the jumpsuit, before the laughter on the side of the road, there was rain, and 2 teenagers huddled under the broken zinc roof of a vendor stall in Jamestown, Accra. The girl's name was Sina. She had no umbrella, no money, and no smile. She sat on a wooden crate beside a small, uneven table with a tray of soggy kelewele no one wanted to buy. Her feet were dusty. Her face was tired. Her eyes held more sadness than 16-year-old eyes should carry. Elikim had just finished a shift at the docks. His shirt was soaked from both sweat and the downpour. In his hand, a warm pack of kenki and fried fish wrapped in brown paper. He almost walked past her, almost. But he saw something in her posture that stopped him. She didn't look poor, she looked forgotten. So he walked over, offered the food like it wasn't. His only meal that day. Sina stared at the package, then at him. She hesitated. Her pride wanted to say no. But her hunger said thank you with shaking hands. That was the first time she spoke to him. Her voice was small like it hadn't been used in days. "I'm Sina," she whispered. "Elikim," he replied. And just like that, a boy with nothing and a girl with less than nothing found each other in the middle of a storm. Over the next few weeks, Elikim made detours just to pass her stall. Sometimes he brought bread. Other times, old newspapers to keep her tray dry. Sometimes he just brought his presence. He didn't expect gratitude. He just wanted her to smile again, and slowly, she did. She started telling him about her life, how her father had passed in a mining accident in Tarkwa, how her mother now cleaned homes in Labadi but barely made enough for rent, how Sina had to drop out of school after JHS because uniforms weren't free. Elikim listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't offer pity, just presence, and that made all the difference. One afternoon, he surprised her with a small second-hand phone. Bought it from a mechanic's cousin in Cantamanto for cheap, Ikai. "Thought maybe you could apply for something, or just listen to music when you're sad," he said. Sina held the phone like it was glass, like it would disappear if she blinked too hard. "You bought this for me?" she asked. Elikim just shrugged. "It's not new," he said. "But neither are we." She laughed. For the first time in weeks, she laughed. That evening, they sat by the streetlight, eating roasted corn and talking about the future like it was something they could actually touch. "I want to study fashion design," Sina said. "I want to build electric motorcycles," Elikim replied. She looked at him, head tilted. "Seriously?" He nodded. "Accra traffic is a monster. I want to make bikes that are cheap, clean, and survive these roads." Sina smiled. "You think big for someone wearing torn sneakers." Elikim laughed. "Dreams don't need shoes." They weren't dating yet, not officially. But the way they looked at each other, that was already a kind of love, the kind that isn't rushed, the kind that blooms between silences and shared sugar bread. Elikim never asked for anything in return. He never made her feel like she owed him, but he gave and gave and gave. When her mother fell ill with typhoid, it was Elikim who stood in line at the clinic. He bought the meds with his transport money and walked 5 kilometers to work. When Sena's period came early and she was too shy to ask her mom, Elikim slipped a small pack of pads into her bag with a note. "You deserve dignity. Always." She cried when she read it, then hugged him at the bus stop. The world didn't see them then. There were no photos, no hashtags, no applause, just two young people trying to stay afloat in a city that didn't care who drowned. But for Elikim, those days mattered more than anything that would come after. Because back then, before the mockery, before the Range Rover, before Kojo Blaze and Instagram fame, Sina was just a girl with banana-stained fingers and dreams stitched in silence. And Elikim, he was the boy who saw her, truly saw her. And that's the kind of sight you don't forget, even when the world convinces you to look away. Love, when it's real, doesn't always feel like fireworks. Sometimes it feels like hunger, like sacrifice, like silence. And for Elikim Quay, loving Sina came at a cost he kept paying, long after he had nothing left to give. It started when Sina got accepted into a fashion program at a local training center in Teshi. She was excited. She called Elikim the moment she got the news. "They accepted me." She screamed, "I need to pay half the fee by Friday." Elikim didn't hesitate. He had just gotten his first real job. Not glamorous, not creative, just a sanitation assistant at a packaging depot near Tama. It paid just enough for rent, transportation, and food. But instead of fixing the hole in his only pair of shoes, or replacing the mattress that felt more like a sack of onions, he took his entire first paycheck and handed it to Sina. "Pay the fees," he said. She hugged him tight. "I'll never forget this," she promised. But memory has a strange way of fading when convenience shows up. Just 1 week later, she asked again. "I need a new phone, mine's acting up." Then it was money for fabrics, then a wig, then transport fare, then lunch money, and a Elikim. He stretched. Then he bent. Then he broke. Not that he ever showed it. He skipped breakfast for weeks. Started walking to work instead of taking the trotro. He even pawned the small Bluetooth speaker his late uncle had given him, all to keep up with. Sina's growing list of needs. She started talking differently. Less thank you, more about time. He noticed, but he kept giving, because in his mind, love was proved through endurance, through actions, through patience. He remembered something. His grandfather used to say, "If you love someone, you build with them." Even when the bricks are heavy. So he built. Even when she stopped showing up to their quiet hangouts. Even when she began replying to his texts with one-word answers. Even when she posted photos with captions like "leveling up but never," tagged him. For her birthday that year, he went all out. She had once pointed at a boutique display and whispered, "That bag is everything." So Elikim saved. He cut costs, took double shifts, sold his only headset, and somehow he bought it. A sleek, black designer handbag with gold trim. He wrapped it carefully and showed up at her house, heart pounding. Sina opened the door in a bodycon. Dress already dressed for the night, music was playing. Her nails were fresh, so was her perfume. "What took you so long?" she said. "I told you my friends are taking me out." Elikim smiled and handed her the gift. "Happy birthday," he said quietly. She opened it. Her eyes lit up for a second, then faded. "It's about time," she muttered. She tossed it onto the couch. Didn't hug him, didn't kiss him, didn't thank him. And before he could even ask if he could join them, she was already out the door. He stood there alone, the scent of her perfume still in the hallway. His stomach growled. He hadn't eaten all day, but the ache in his chest drowned out the one in his belly. Still, he told himself, "She's just tired. She's just overwhelmed. She'll see me soon." But what Sina saw wasn't the boy who once fed her. She saw a man who still wore faded jeans, still lived in his aunt's corridor, still had dreams written in pencil, not on business cards. One evening, after she complained about him not stepping up, he tried to explain. "I've been sketching models for eco motorbikes," he told her. "Affordable ones. For streets like ours. I'm learning battery mechanics from YouTube. Just give me time," she scoffed. "Elikim, dreams are cute, but I'm tired of eating plans." He froze. She continued, "I need a man who can provide now. not in some magical tomorrow. That night, Elikim sat on the floor of his small room. The power was out. His stomach was empty. His sketchbook lay open beside him. He stared at the ceiling and whispered, "Is love supposed to feel this much like drowning?" But then he shook his head, wiped his face, and kept drawing. Because even if Sina stopped believing in him, he hadn't stopped believing in himself. Not yet. It was supposed to be a celebration, a birthday party for Sina's best friend, held at a rooftop lounge in East Legon, the kind of place with soft lighting, expensive cocktails, and too many people pretending to be happy. Elikim had spent the week saving every CD he could. He wanted to show up with something special, something meaningful. He had overheard Sina talking about her favorite bakery in Lebon, so he placed an order. A small red velvet cake with buttercream frosting and gold lettering. That read, "To the woman who lights up every room." He arrived late, not on purpose, but because his bike chain had snapped 2 blocks away. So he jogged the last stretch, cake balanced carefully in both hands, shirt damp with sweat. When he got to the elevator, the security guard looked him up and, "Down! You're here for delivery?" the man asked. Elikim just smiled. "No, I'm here for someone I love." He stepped into the lounge quietly. The music was low. Laughter danced around the room like perfume. People clinked glasses and took selfies in front of a neon sign that said "Boss Babe Energy." And then he saw her, Sina, at the center of it all, wearing a silver sequin dress that shimmered with every step, her makeup flawless, her smile wide, her glass full, and next to her, Kojo Blaze. He had his arm casually draped around her shoulders. He was laughing too loudly, wearing cologne you could smell from across the room. Elikim froze. The cake suddenly felt heavier than it should have. He moved toward her slowly, heart pounding. But before he could say a word, Sina saw him. And her face changed. Not into surprise, not joy, not even guilt, just irritation. "What are you doing here?" she hissed, stepping away from the group. "I brought you something," he said, holding out the cake with both hands. She took one look at it and frowned. "This is why I told you not to come. Elikim, look at this place you bring." "Cake like we're still in Jamestown?" Her voice wasn't loud, but it was sharp enough to cut through bone. Some of her friends were watching, whispering. One of them chuckled, the kind of chuckle that turns into stories later. Elikim swallowed. "Hard, I just wanted to celebrate you," he said softly. "I thought—" "No," she interrupted. "You thought wrong. You always think too small." She didn't take the cake. She didn't say thank you. She didn't even introduce him. She just turned and walked away, back to the champagne, back to Kojo, back to the noise. Elikim stood there, frozen, still holding the box, still holding his breath, still holding on to a version of her that no longer existed. After a few minutes, he turned around and left. He didn't say goodbye, didn't ask for an explanation. He just walked out of the building and down the street. The night was quiet, but inside his chest, there was thunder. He got home, placed the cake on the table, and sat beside it for hours. The frosting had started to melt, but he didn't touch it, didn't eat it, didn't throw it away. He just stared at it, as if it might offer answers he couldn't find anywhere else. At some point, he whispered to himself, maybe love was never supposed to be this cruel. He didn't sleep that night, but he did something he hadn't done in weeks. He picked up his sketchbook. He opened to a blank page and began to draw. Not because of hope, but because of pain. Because pain, when harnessed right, can become the most honest form of clarity. That night he designed a new frame, sturdier, lighter, with better suspension for Ghana's broken roads. He labeled it quietly in pencil, Model A, After, because that was the night everything changed. That was the night. He stopped begging for love and started building for himself. Some people walk into your life quietly. No grand entrance, no spotlight, just presence. And sometimes that presence changes everything. It was a Wednesday afternoon. The sun was hiding behind lazy clouds, and Akra felt slower than usual. Elikim was sitting alone at the open-air cafe inside the Osu Community Library. A small table, a bottle of water, and his sketchbook, worn, frayed, and full of dreams no one had taken seriously. He had just finished drawing a modular gear system, one designed to function even with frequent power outages and pothole-ridden streets. He was tracing the final lines when a voice spoke, low and curious. "Is that a transmission design?" He looked up. She stood in front of him wearing jeans, dusty white sneakers, and a navy blue polo with the logo of a local energy startup. No makeup, no fake lashes, no ring light filter, just wide eyes and the kind of face that made you want to tell the truth. "Yes," Elikim replied, a little hesitant. "I mean, it's just a concept for now." She didn't smile. She nodded, then pulled out the empty chair across from him. "May I?" He nodded. She sat down and leaned forward. "I'm Nana Oforiwa. I work in tech hardware and clean mobility. And you designed this yourself?" Elikim felt exposed, but somehow not ashamed. "Yeah," he said. "I've been working on eco-motorbike prototypes for years. Affordable, solar-compatible, rugged enough for Akra's madness." Nana picked up the sketchbook gently. She flipped through it slowly, like she was reading someone's journal. No mockery, no fake interest, just genuine attention. "These pivot joints," she said. "They'd allow suspension movement even with a basic frame." Elikim blinked. "You understand that?" She smiled for the first time. "I studied mechanical systems before switching to energy design." Then she leaned back. "Why haven't you built a prototype yet?" Elikim laughed, but it came out bitter. "Because dreams don't come with capital. I work delivery shifts in the morning, sanitation work in the evenings. I sketch at night, in the dark, usually hungry." Niana didn't interrupt. She just nodded, then said, "That's not a reason to stop, it's a reason to start louder." For a moment, Elikim didn't know what to say. No one had ever said that to him. Not like that. Not with belief in their eyes. Most people dismissed him after 5 seconds. Niana stayed for 50 minutes. They talked until the cafe closed. About motors, about power alternatives, about what it would take to pitch a working prototype. Before leaving, she handed him a card. It had her email, her phone number, and one line printed in gold. "Build what they said couldn't be built." Elikim didn't sleep that night, but not from heartbreak, from adrenaline, from ideas. He opened a new page in his sketchbook and labeled it Project Nyansa 1. Nyansa means wisdom in Akan. It felt right. It felt possible. Over the next few days, Nana and Elikim met regularly, in libraries, at roadside chop bars, at her startup's co-working hub after hours. They didn't have money, but they had time and fire. She helped him digitize his designs. She knew 3D, modeling software he'd never even heard of. They created renderings, simulated road stress, even planned how parts could be recycled from local scrapyards. Every question Nana asked forced Elikim to think bigger, deeper, clearer. And every answer he gave reminded him that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't crazy. Maybe his dream wasn't stupid. One evening, they were sitting under a mango tree near the lab. The generator had just gone off. Darkness settled in. Elikim looked up at the stars and whispered, "I don't know what this is, but I feel alive again." Nana didn't look at him. She just said, "That's what purpose feels like. Not love, not yet, but something even more powerful in that moment. Respect. Mutual respect." And from that soil, something incredible was starting to grow. Not just a machine, but a mission, a vision, a reason to keep pedaling even when the road was cracked. Some moments bruise the body, others bruise the soul. This one did both. It was the annual appreciation event at Elikim's Depot, a small blue-collar logistics company tucked behind the Makola market, the kind of place that never made headlines. But this year, management decided to celebrate staff who had shown remarkable dedication. Elikim's name made the list. He had worked long hours, taken double shifts, fixed broken equipment without pay, so they gave him a plastic plaque. Nothing fancy. But to Elikim, it meant something. It was the first time his name had been printed on anything official. He even ironed his best shirt, polished his dusty shoes until the cracks looked like design. Before leaving his aunt's house, he stopped at the corner shop, bought a small box of chocolates with the last cedis in his wallet. It was meant for Sina. He didn't know why, maybe to share good news, maybe to say, "Look, I'm trying," maybe to feel seen. He arrived early. The hall was decorated with yellow streamers and mismatched chairs. The DJ played songs too loud for the size of the room. Still, people were smiling, dancing, eating free food. And for a moment, Elikim allowed himself to believe that maybe he was finally stepping into the light. But light has a way of revealing shadows. Halfway through the event, laughter erupted near the door, not the joyful kind, the mocking kind. He turned, and time slowed. Sina had just walked in, with Kojo Blaze beside her, again. His gold chain glinted like arrogance itself. He wore sunglasses indoors. Sina wore a deep green dress that wrapped around her like a warning. Her eyes scanned the room lazily, then locked on Elikim, and her smile widened, not kindly, not sweetly, but like someone who had found a new way to hurt. "What is he doing here?" she said loudly. "Did they hire bicycle boys as ushers now?" A few heads turned. Some people laughed. Kojo clapped once, loud, theatrical, then walked straight up to Elikim. He looked him over, head to toe. Then, with an open palm, he shoved Elikim's chest hard. "Bro," he said, "this party no be for ground-level people. Carry your struggle and go outside." Gasps filled the room. Someone tried to step in, but Kojo raised a hand. "No vex, I'd just help him understand position." Elikim stumbled slightly, but didn't fall. His plaque slipped from under his arm and hit the floor with a hollow sound. So did the box of chocolates. For a second, the room went still. No music, no laughter, just embarrassment clinging to the air like smoke. Elikim looked at Sena. She looked away, like he was invisible. Like he had never carried her Kelawel tray through the rain. Like he hadn't once given her his last meal. He bent down slowly, picked up the plaque, then the chocolates, straightened his shoulders, and turned. Not a word, not a glare, just dignity and silence, because sometimes the loudest thing you can say is nothing at all. He walked out, each step slow, measured, heavy, but behind him, their laughter followed like ghosts. He reached the sidewalk and paused, breathed deep. That's when he heard a familiar voice. "Elikim?" He turned. Nana stood there in jeans and a green head wrap holding a notebook. "I came, like you told me." She looked at his hands. The plaque, the chocolates, the shame. What happened? He looked down, then back up. "They reminded me who I used to be," he said. Nana stepped closer. "Then let's build something they could never laugh at." And just like that, the night that was supposed to break him became the night he decided to rise, not to prove anything to Sina, not to fight Kojo, but to fulfill the promise he made to himself, that he would no longer beg to be seen. He would make something too powerful to be ignored. The air inside the pitch room was colder than it needed to be, not just from the AC, but from the looks on their faces. 5 judges sat behind a long mahogany table. 3 men, 2 women, all dressed in sharp suits, all staring at Elikim like he had walked into the wrong building. He probably had. At least, that's how it felt. He adjusted his tie, borrowed from Nana's cousin. His shirt had been ironed with care, but you could still see the wear on the collar. Beside him stood Nana, confident as ever, holding a slim laptop. She gave him a quick, "You've got this," he nodded back, though his hands were sweating. This was their chance after months of work. Late nights, sacrificed meals, hundreds of sketch revisions. They were finally presenting the prototype design of Nyanza 1, a solar-compatible electric motorcycle, built for the chaos of African roads, clean, modular, affordable. They had applied for a youth startup grant. Modest money, but enough to build a working demo. And now they had 10 minutes to convince the room that this dream deserved to live. Ilikum stepped forward. He cleared his throat, then began. He spoke slowly at first, explaining the flaws of current systems, the lack of accessible, affordable transport, the cost of imported parts, the opportunity for local assembly jobs. He walked them through the chassis design, explained how local scrap aluminum could be reprocessed, how the battery casing had been inspired by recycled water bottles, how the suspension system was modeled after locally modified Okada bikes. He spoke with fire, not just words, vision. And for a moment, the judges leaned forward. For a moment, they were listening, until one of them leaned back and laughed. "You want to build a motorcycle company?" He said the words like they were a punchline. "With what capital?" another judge chimed in. "Even your shoes are asking for help. How do we trust your finances?" The room chuckled softly. Ilikum felt his throat tighten, but Nana stepped in, without blinking. Without flinching, she clicked on a slide, projected a cost-benefit model on the wall. "If we start local, train youth, and use recycled materials, the numbers work," she said. "We've already partnered with 2 informal mechanic hubs in a Shyman." She looked at the judge who laughed. "And his shoes don't build engines, his mind does." Silence. For a second, just silence. But then the final verdict came. A polite rejection letter. Typed, signed, stamped. "Come back when you have something more tangible," they said. Like dreams weren't tangible. Like nights without sleep didn't. Count Ilikum walked out of the room without saying a word. Nana followed. They didn't speak until they reached the stairs. Then she placed a hand on his shoulder. "I know it stings," she said, "but you were brilliant in there." He looked down at the folder in his hands, then up at her. "It wasn't enough." She paused, then whispered, "Maybe not today. But you know what I've learned? The world rarely says yes the first time. But if you speak loud enough, long enough, it has to listen." That night, back in their corner of the community tech hub, they sat in silence. The prototype frame sat nearby, made from scrap pipes and plastic. Wobbly, incomplete, but real. Ilikum stared at it for a long time, then opened his phone, propped it up, on a stack of books, pressed record. No script, no filters, no fancy lighting, just a boy, a dream, and a frame of scrap metal. "My name is Ilikum Quay," he began. "I wasn't born with wealth, connections, or suits, but I was born with vision." He walked around the prototype, pointed to its flaws, explained the ideas behind it, talked about mechanics who could be trained, jobs that could be created, roads that could be changed. He ended with a single line. "We don't have money, but we have the will to build." He posted it on Twitter. Nana added the caption, "Please don't scroll past this." Then they went home. Tired, disappointed, quiet, but not broken. The next morning, Ilikum's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. 100 likes, aren't. Retweets on 1,000 views. Then 10,000 messages started pouring in. People tagging journalists, bloggers sharing, tech influencers quoting the video, and then an email from a Ghanaian-American investor based in Nairobi. He had seen the video, and he wasn't laughing. He was booking a flight. The man's name was Kwame Bediako, a Ghanaian-American entrepreneur, founder of one of East Africa's fastest-growing tech firms. He had grown up in Takoradi, studied in Atlanta, now lived in Nairobi. And when he saw Ilikum's video, he didn't see poverty. He saw potential. He flew into Accra within 10 days. No cameras, no suits, no press release. Just one man in jeans and sneakers, walking into the small tech hub where Ilikum and Nyana worked after hours. He greeted them with a wide smile, held out his hand. "You're the one who built the bike from trash?" Ilikum blinked, then nodded. Kwame chuckled. "You think that's crazy?" Ilikum shrugged. "I think dreams are allowed to look rough at the beginning." Kwame sat down. "I watched your video 5 times, and I didn't come here to donate. I came here to invest." Nana exchanged a look with Ilikum. They weren't used to this. People believing, people backing, people showing up. Kwame asked one question. Where do you see this in 5 years? Elikim sat up straight. His voice didn't shake this time. Nyansa Motors is the future of affordable mobility across Africa, built by Africans, for African roads, using African ingenuity. Kwame leaned back. That's the kind of madness I like. The paperwork took 2 weeks, and just like that, they received their first official investment, enough to rent a real space, buy materials, hire hands, and build a working prototype from the ground up. It wasn't just a project anymore. It was a company, Nyansa Motors. Their first production model? They named it Anans-01, inspired by the wise spider from Akan folklore. It was more than a name. It was a reminder. That strategy beats strength, that wisdom builds what money can't, that stories matter. They built the first frame in a repurposed garage near Medina. No air conditioning, no fancy tools, but plenty of sweat, plenty of faith. Nana led the technical design. Elikim handled assembly and local outreach. They hired 3 mechanics from the very Okada station that once laughed at Elikim's bike, trained them, gave them purpose. The motorbike had thick tires, reinforced shocks, a solar charging unit built into the seat frame. It wasn't sleek, but it was beautiful, because worked. And when they rolled it out onto the dusty street that morning, people stopped. They stared. A crowd gathered. Phones came out. Someone whispered, "Is this the boy Kojo mocked last month?" Another said, "That's Elikim, from the video." By sunset, the clip had gone viral again, but this time, it wasn't pity. It was power. News stations called, bloggers wrote, BBC Africa requested an interview. And for the first time, Elikim stood not in the shadows of laughter, but in the spotlight of innovation. But even then, he stayed grounded. He returned to the depot to thank the manager who once gave him flexible hours. He donated tools to the mechanic who once told him, "These hands can't fix dreams." He walked the streets of Nima, not to show off, but to remind himself where he started. Meanwhile, Sina watched from afar, scrolling through posts, watching clips, reading headlines, and feeling something she couldn't explain. It wasn't just regret. It was realization. The man she once ignored was now the man everyone wanted to listen to. But Elikim wasn't looking back. He was busy sketching the next model, talking to school heads about internships, setting up weekend trainings for youth. He didn't just want to build bikes, he wanted to build people. Not all prisons have bars. Some are built from silence, regret, and scrolling thumbs. Sana watched it all unfold on her phone. At first, it was just one video, a young man talking about solar motorcycles made from scrap. She almost swiped past it, but the voice, it stopped her. Familiar, firm, painfully familiar. She tapped, watched, froze. It was Elikim, standing in front of a garage, no dust on his face, no sweat on his shirt, just purpose in his eyes, and Nana beside him, nodding as he spoke. Sina didn't blink the whole time. When it ended, her hand trembled. She watched it again, then a third time, then searched the name, Nyansa Motors. What she found made her breath catch. Articles, interviews, photo shoots, early investor, partnerships. They had even launched a small showroom in East Legon. She stared at a photo of Elikim smiling beside the Ananze-01 prototype. The caption read, "Built from scraps, designed for greatness." And below that, a comment, "This man gave me transport fare in uni when I had nothing. Now he's creating jobs." Sana dropped the phone. It hit the tile floor with a loud crack, but she didn't move. She just sat, staring at nothing. Kojo came in a few minutes later, saw the phone on the ground, saw her on the couch. Didn't ask what was wrong, didn't care. He walked straight to the fridge, opened a drink, and turned on the TV. That's what life with Kojo had become. Silence, control, occasional violence. The luxury had faded fast. The car was still there, but joy wasn't. Money came with conditions. Gifts came with price tags, sometimes physical, sometimes emotional. She wasn't allowed to ask questions. If she did, there were consequences. The first time he slapped her, he called it a misunderstanding. The second time, he didn't call it anything, just handed her tissue and told her to clean her face before visitors came. Now, it was routine. Slaps for speaking too loud, pushes for touching his phone, mockery for gaining weight, isolation from old friends, all of it wrapped in gold chains and fake smiles. But this video, it was the worst blow yet, because it reminded her of who she used to be, of who Elikim used to be, of what she had thrown away, the man who once walked her to school, the man who skipped lunch so she could eat, the man who bought her that bag she flaunted, and never thanked. She opened his page again. One picture caught her eye. It was him and Nyana, standing under a mango tree, laughing, their hands brushing, the way Elikim used to hold hers, before everything turned cold. Then she saw it, a small diamond, ring on Nyana's finger, no caption, just the hashtag. Rooted Love Sina felt something sharp rise in her chest. Not jealousy, not even heartbreak, but realization. She whispered, I had him, and I let him go. Kojo walked back into the room, saw the photo on her screen, scoffed. That bicycle boy? He's still poor. Sina didn't reply. She just turned the phone over, and for the first time in months, she cried, not because of Kojo, but because of herself. Because now, she wasn't just far from Elikim. She was far from the version of herself that once believed. Kindness. And distance like that, it doesn't show on maps, it shows in your soul. The invitation came in a white envelope. No text message, no email blast. Just elegance, gold lettering on thick cardstock. Simple, clear. The wedding of Elikim Kwe and Nana Ofuriwa. Sena stared at it for nearly 10 minutes. She read the names. The venue, an eco-conference hall in Aburi overlooking the mountains. Then read it all over again. At first she thought it was a mistake, a prank, a cruel coincidence. But no, her name was written on the front. Not guest of honor, not even friend, just Ms. Sena Mensa. Kojo saw it later that night. He was scrolling through TikTok when the video popped up. Elikim and Nana dancing under fairy lights. Laughter, matching kente. Hashtags like I'm from Bike to Bride and Ainyansa Love trending all over Ghana. Kojo snorted. Guy de Mary, and he's still using bicycle aesthetics. Sina didn't laugh. She looked at her reflection in the mirror. Her once glowing skin now marked with faint scars. Her eyes duller, her shoulders lower. And yet, somewhere deep inside, she still wanted to go. To see him. To say something. Anything. Maybe, I'm sorry. Maybe I remember, maybe just to sit quietly where he could see her face. On the wedding day, she wore her best dress. It barely fit. Kojo came too, not out of love, but curiosity and ego. They arrived in a rented black SUV. He wore designer shades. She wore hesitation. The venue was stunning. Rows of Ananswo 1. Motorcycles lined the driveway like royal guards. Guests in vibrant colors mingled under white tents. The air smelled of gardenias and grilled tilapia. A string quartet played softly in the background. Sina walked slowly, holding her breath. No one recognized her. No one whispered her name. She wasn't the center of attention anymore. She was background, somewhere between forgotten and invisible. Inside the hall, she chose a seat in the very last row, next to a potted plant close enough to see, far enough to be unseen. The ceremony began, and then he walked in, Elikim, in a white agbada trimmed with gold. Confident, calm, whole. Beside him, Nana, radiant in coral, beads and woven fabric, smiling like she had waited her whole life for this moment. When they exchanged vows, Sina's hands trembled. when they laughed through their first kiss. Her eyes filled with tears, not of envy, but of memory. Memory of another time, another version of herself, another version of him. Then came the speeches. Elikim stood behind the mic, scanning the crowd. He spoke with grace. Once, I had nothing but a bicycle and a blueprint. People laughed, ignored, even pushed me away. But someone saw more than what I rode. She saw where I was going. He turned toward Nana. And that's why this is not just a wedding. This is a victory. Applause roared through the hall, but in the back, Sina lowered her head. Her tears fell silently into her lap. Kojo leaned over and whispered, "You better hold yourself together. Don't disgrace me." But she didn't reply, because in that moment, she realized she didn't care what Kojo thought. He had never cared, never built, never sacrificed, never stayed. She looked up one more time, just as Elikim and Nana walked down the aisle, hand in hand, and for the briefest second, Elikim glanced her way. No smile, no anger, just a small nod, a quiet acknowledgement. Then he looked forward, toward his future, and kept walking, leaving behind the girl who once mocked his bicycle, now seated in the back row with nothing but memory in her hands. Time passed, but not gently. For some, it brought peace. For others, silence. Elikim and Nana returned from their honeymoon to a new chapter waiting. Yansa Motors had grown. More bikes, more jobs, more young people being trained to dream with their hands. They launched a youth fellowship, Wheels of Wisdom, offering scholarships to students from low-income areas. They partnered with polytechnics, set up internship programs, built a factory outside. Kumasi that ran on solar energy. And at the heart of it all, Elikim still wearing his old watch, still carrying his sketchbook, still speaking softly and building loudly. One morning he stood at the gate of his childhood home, now renovated, painted, fitted, with a ramp and a plaque that read Mama Akosua Innovation Center. He closed his eyes and whispered, "We did it, Ma." Beside him, Naana held his hand. She was 6 months pregnant with twins, their names already chosen. Kwabena, born on Tuesday, Naira, blessing. Everything felt right. Everything felt full. But not for everyone. Across town, Sina now worked as a junior assistant at a roadside salon. After the wedding incident, Kojo had spiraled. He drank, he gambled, he lashed out. Until one night, he simply disappeared, left her bruised, alone and behind on rent. She moved into a small room behind the salon, shared a bathroom with 3 other tenants. No one knew who she used to be. And now? She no longer told the story, she just watched. Watched the motorcycles drive past on the street, recognized the logo, felt the sting. One Sunday afternoon, she walked to a bus stop. It started to rain, and as she waited, a boy parked a brand new Anance. The one next to her. He wore a bright yellow helmet, the kind Sina had once mocked. He took it off, smiled, and said, "Ma'am, you can stand under the seat canopy. It's waterproof." She nodded, moved slowly, and for a moment her fingers touched the logo. Nyansa Motors, Elikim's dream. Now everywhere. She didn't cry. Not anymore. Tears had dried months ago. She just whispered, "I had a front row seat to this, and I gave it up, and for noise." The boy looked confused. She smiled. "Nothing, son, thank you." That night, back in her room, she opened a worn envelope. Inside was a letter Elikim had written her years ago, folded, yellowing. "Senai, know it's hard now, but please don't give up on me. I promise one day I'll make you proud." She held it to her chest, closed her eyes, but this time the tears did fall, because now he had made the whole world proud, except her, the one person who never waited long enough to see it happen. Meanwhile, across town, Elikim sat in a quiet office, holding his newborn son Kwabena. He watched the baby breathe, so small, so alive. Nana walked in and kissed his forehead. "Thinking again?" she asked. He smiled. "Just remembering." She sat beside him. Do you regret any of it? He shook his head. Even the worst parts taught me something. They taught me to build stronger, to love better, to choose wisely. Outside, a group of interns walked by, carrying tools and laughing. One of them shouted, "Boss Elikim, Prototype 2 is almost ready." He laughed. Good, because the future's waiting. Later that evening, he stood at a window, watched the sun dip, behind the factory rooftops, and whispered to himself, "They laughed at my bicycle. But now, we ride." Sometimes the people you sacrifice for will be the first to forget. Sometimes the ones you feed will be the first to starve your spirit. But if you keep building, if you keep believing, the world has no choice but to watch. Because while they were laughing at his bicycle, he was designing a legacy. Sana didn't lose a boyfriend. She lost a seat at the table. She lost the chance to walk beside a king, because she couldn't wait for a man who was still becoming. And now, she watches from the shadows, while the world applauds the boy who once gave her his last coin. This isn't just a win. This is justice, the quiet kind, the permanent kind. So, to everyone who's ever been laughed at for dreaming too big with too little, don't shrink. Build. Because one day they won't just remember what you rode, they'll remember what you rose into.